Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. I'd like to have $1 for every time I've heard tariff mentioned over the last 4 or 5 months. I'd probably be a millionaire by now. But there's a lot that you don't know about tariffs and the purposes that tariffs are used. As usual, history is going to be a little bit of a useful guide as we navigate the reasons why and wherefore and what the real risks are in imposing tariffs. Let's get into it. And good morning to you. And if you're not subscribed, people seem to really be enjoying these commentaries because we go below the surface, the deep dive, the submarine dive to examine topics in not just economics, but society too, and go beyond just surface explanations of, well, I guess it's this because of that. Maybe it's not that because of this, right? I like to go deep and trigger your thinking a little bit philosophically, so you're a little more of a critical thinker when we discuss these issues, so everybody, including myself, can benefit. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell for all notifications. And, thumbs up are always appreciated. If you enjoyed at the end, share it out. I was asked specifically to speak about tariffs here, and I've really held off because I want to think about things. I don't like to just give snap reactions to what's going on in the world, but I like to think about things in a sort of a deeper level. And one of the things I wanted to do was go back in history and examine the idea of tariffs. And tariffs were really put on in the Gilded Age, that period between post-Civil War and about 1900, 1905, in that area. It's considered the golden age of America. And remember this too, or know this too, there was no income tax at that time. And the United States depended on collecting revenues through commerce and channels like that, right? Thus, the United States government was teeny tiny. It was almost infinitesimally small, right? You could probably put the people in the other departments in a telephone booth at that time and have them all checked in here, right? So tariffs were considered a way of also raising revenue, as they are now. And back then, especially when Grover Cleveland became president, the tariffs went into effect, and he wasn't really as pro-tariff as you possibly think that he was. It was really William McKinley that really bolstered the idea of tariffs. And let's be honest, as they said, and as this shows from this little recap on Wikipedia here, well, the reality is that the tariffs did a lot to protect industry, but they also did a lot to raise prices and create a lot of inflation. There's a trade-off here, okay? The cost of goods to support to put American manufacturing as primary. In first place, there's a cost involved in that. And we're going to show you down the road. I'm going to show you in a future video what that cost is going to be to Amazon in terms of what it is facing as competitive threats. And it all ties together very, very nicely. But the upshot of that is that there was a very terrible recession, the worst one in United States history until the Great Depression took place in 1892, and I've talked about that before. And under the pressure of declining markets, rapid rise, 18% unemployment rate, yeah, you don't hear much about it because, of course, the Great Depression overshadows it. But it was a horrific period in American history, especially if you were a working person. And the burden of tariffs bolted on top of that made the cost of goods expensive, and well, they didn't really come down because of tariffs and all that. There's a cost to protecting your domestic industry. Another cost, of course, is declining innovation. If you're in a bubble and you're protected in there, you don't have to innovate your way out of that bubble and, well, use the old noggin to come up with new and creative ideas and breakthroughs to take things up to the next level. We call that in sports the fire of competition, right? You don't get better by not playing better teams. You get better by playing superior teams in sport. It causes you to up your game. Now, as far as what I'm concerned and what I can tell, there's multiple ways. You have to understand the American standard of living has been under pressure since the 1960s here. And at first, I'm not going to go deep into this, but it was throw women into the workforce, expanded the economy. But with that expansion of the economy and with that added revenue in the workforce, it created a higher standard of living that now is really, really hard to maintain. Because the jobs that now pay enough to support the traditional standard of living. And it's not just a matter of dollars and cents. It's a matter of adjusting things for inflation and all that. We know, right, intuitively, right, as we're living, that the standard of living on average has gone down in America because we're putting a lot more of our human capital into trying to earn a living just to stay on the treadmill and pay for rising food costs as well as rentals. So I really think that there's a two-pronged attack here to at least buy more time in the sense of bolstering America by having tariffs of up to 25%, in some cases even 100%. The problem is there's a view that that's protecting American industry, but we're not making the manufactured goods anymore that come from China, right? So we're not protecting a domestic industry here, but the expectation is that one will grow up. In a future video, I'll be talking about sunglasses. You can buy sunglasses on Temu for 97 cents. So the expectation is that we'll come here and be able to set up a manufacturing operation that can kick out those sunglasses for, well, be able to sell for 90 cents on it, right? You're just not going to have those homegrown industries that are born. It's a much different era than the 1880s to the 1900s when the United States was growing a monstrous consumer base, and it was felt that protecting that and raising revenue for the United States government was a very, very important thing. Two prongs. Number one, there's the idea that get the additional revenue, right, from tariffs. And of course, the downside of that is that companies, we can have sort of beggar thy neighbor and cyclical increases in tariffs. We can one-up each other. You put 25% on us, we're going to put 25% on you. Now we're going to go up to 50%, we're going to 50%. Well, we get the deflationary experience in the 1930s when we see that with this Smoot-Hawley tariff act that came in then. It just caused an agonizing spiral downward of imports and exports. So everybody ended up being hurt by those tariffs, and it was eventually undone. Now, Grover Cleveland was by the time he left office after this Great Depression of the 1890s, he was universally really disliked. And the McKinley administration, William McKinley, took over after that. And despite President Trump's assurance that tariffs did great things for America then, they were gradually repealed and moved backwards precisely because the Depression was hurting people's ability to consume, and inflation was hurting their ability to consume too. So let's get back to the two-pronged real rationale that I think drives the push for tariffs. Number one, this idea that it'll be a one-way street and we'll just have increased revenue here. I don't know what people are going to buy. I mean, who in the heck knows? I don't know. There will be an immediate surge of revenue that's collected. Number two, of course, it will be inflationary costs that are passed along to consumers, which will depress demand for products and slow things down. So as you can see, it's a two-edged sword, or as they say in China, remember I lived there for 5 years and learned the language and spoke it. All of the old sayings of China, a needle can't be sharp at both ends. It's got to be one way or the other, because if you can strike, somebody can strike you back, okay? Worth bearing in mind, that's number one, the short-term gain in revenue. And the second thing is also has to do with removing people from the nation, especially the people that are deported. For the most part, it appears that the first wave of deportation is more targeted at a criminal element, but then it'll dig down to people that just don't have the legal right to be in this nation. And a lot of those people are amongst the working class people of the nation. Having them removed and being deported, the theory is that it'll be able to raise the wage rates. But you have to understand, we already have a limit on consumption here, and people are struggling right now mightily. I talked to a friend of mine the other day. His son is working 3 different jobs to get by. I mean, how much more can you be on the treadmill and that? And it seems like universally people are complaining that it's hard to make $1 right now, right? That's the universal complaint. So obviously our ability to consume is declining in this nation. So by putting the price of things up further, we shall see, right? But at least now you have a better idea of the real inside ideas about tariffs and the short-term purpose that they are used for. And long-term, of course, we know we had the whole removal of tariffs through the 40s, 50s, 60s, until finally we had this idea of full globalization with free trade, general agreement on tariffs and trades, GATT agreements and all that, until by post-pandemic, everybody was horrified that, well, China was producing everything. Hair stood on end, right? Here we are, we're anti, right? We're tired of being overrun by cheap goods and all of that. So panic set in now. We're donning this protectionist cloak again. No doubt it's a very interesting topic, but you can certainly see the president's two-pronged approach through deportation and through tariffs should give a temporary boost on at least revenues that are collected from the United States, because as we've highlighted in other videos, the biggest threat here is the yawning budget deficit and the amount of debt that has to be rolled over. Spoiler alert, we'll talk about it on a future video, and this is why you want to be subscribed. Why is gold hitting all-time highs if inflation is going down this way? There's more to that than meets the eye, and of course, we're going to go deep on it in a future video, and I'd love you to be a part of it. In the meantime, guys, thumbs up are appreciated. Subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications. If there's something you would like me to weigh in on a future video, let me know. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.